So you can find everything on the syllabus, which is here. We will not be using Canvas. Um, I tried it and I don't like it. So yeah, everything will be on the syllabus. Cool. Let me restart this. Cool. Yeah, I'm Herman. I will also do it, I guess. I use him program year. It doesn't seem relevant. Most familiar instrument, likely my voice, vocal. I sing in choir. Used to. Um, I play a little bit of drums, play a little bit of piano, and coded, of course, a lot, mostly in Python, but I mean, my first programming language is C++, unfortunately. And then I stopped coding for 2 years. So, if you ever, experience some bad programming language experience, this is not the case in this class. We are doing it very fun and very easy to get started. Unlike, if you have taken, an intro to CS course with C++, then you'll realize that just even to compile your first program, it just take, I don't know, a day or so. So this is not the case. So in this class, we will be very, very entry level. Um, cool. Some more information. So I go by Herman mostly. And you can reach me from with email. That should be the easiest way to reach me. Um, and my office is at Stearns. Anybody heard of Stearns? Nope. Yeah, it's up on the hill. So it's at the most what's that? Northwestern corner of the North campus. So 10 minutes or 15 minutes ish if you go up the hill. And you will find it. It's like a cabin. So anyway, office hours by appointments. I will have the link on the course website and just book it. But just let me know if you need to find another time if that time doesn't work. So that's a bookable links, I mean. And my research areas is in generative AI for music, audio, and recently video. But anyway, anything relevant to AI, broadly speaking. And my background is I mean, my undergrad is in WE, and then my PhD is in computer science, and now I'm teaching in the music school. So you get a sense how interdisciplinary this field is. But it's all about how you can create AI tools for creators. So either it's music, either it's audio, think about sound effects, sound design for films, for video, how do you edit the video, but also, of course, music production, how you generate music. So, that's not about the class. So this class is about creative coding. So of course it's about coding, but it will be very beginner friendly. We will be using a very cool programming language called processing. It's a visual programming language. So it's a very, very good way to start learning about coding. I hope. I mean, personally, I started coding with that rather than C++. C++ was a nightmare for me. But anyway, that's what the course is about. And we will be, it's creative coding. So these tools will be used in a way that, it's not like solving something, but rather how can you use it creatively. So what this is the course all about? We are, computer programming for musical applications, but the emphasis will be creative and artistic use of code. Even though musical application, but we will start with this programming language called processing to give you the sense what text-based programming. So that's the typical stereotype of what programming is like. You open out a scary terminal, greenish. I don't know why it's green always in movies. And then you write something and then you compile and it will do something. But processing is not like that. It's very cool that you can actually create some visuals. So you can create, like it's sort of like you write something and then you can immediately see what you're generating. you are writing on the way. So this is a very good way to get you started with coding without, being terrified by all the details of what the details of these programming language is. And the second half of the class will be on Max. So you likely heard of it. Oh, this is the older version of Max. Now it's Max 9. And on these desktop, it's likely workstations are likely Max 9. That's the Max 8 logo. But Max is a programming language. It's graphical programming language, and it has a totally different way of thinking. What we call it's a signal flow based programming language, which is very useful for real-time music composition, but it's also really nice for real-time media art, intermedia art creation. And we will get into it. So these are the two programming languages we will be exploring. So as I said, processing is free, so you can download it. And you can also use it on the workstation. But for Macs, it's much trickier because it's you need a license and it's very expensive. So you can access them on the workstations. And it's only 30-day license, so keep it until for your project. I think that's the best way. Cool. Objectives, you can find it on the syllabus, but I guess that the key is to get a sense of programming. Don't be scared by programming, and it should be fun in this class because all the assignments and things that we are doing, it's not like typical programming class that, we are doing something, doing games, doing drawings, creating drum machines, creating a keyboard, MIDI keyboard using your laptop. So things like that should be much interesting than, typical programming course. Yeah, so I guess to get started, just to hint you a little bit about what's processing, that will be the first half of the class, and the second half of the class will be Max. And these are two very different programming language, but could give you the hint of what people are using in art creation. So what is processing? It's a free programming language built for electronic arts, new media arts, and visual design. But anyway, I think the key is that it's very easy to get started with. And then it's based on Java. These are some of the technical details that you likely after this slide, you will forget about it. And then, after several lectures later, you will realize, oh, we are actually writing Java. But that's the beauty of this processing programming language is that you are actually writing Java. So Java, C++, Python. Python is a high-level programming language, and C++, C, Java. These are some of the most, third most popular programming language on GitHub. I think the first is Python. The first is likely JavaScript, and then Python, and then Java. And so, even using processing, you can leverage the whole Java things that people have done. So lots of the code in your mobile phone is actually based on Java. So just could give you the hint that, even though we are doing processing, it's actually writing Java programming language. So the syntax, even though simplified, but you are still learning something that can be translatable to Java. So I guess now I would just show some demos that, why we are doing this processing programming language. So that is Radiohead. So this is like 2007 House of Cards. And it's very cool because there's a Radiohead on GitHub. So GitHub is the where people share open source code. So you can see that it actually released the code for doing this. And so this is actually written processing. Let's take a look first. composition is actually been created in processing like 20 years ago. I don't wanna be your friend. So what they've done is that, they use like light tracking. This is very annoying. So they use light tracking to sort of like measure your face, the depths of your face. You just throw a light and then get it back, compute how long it takes, so you can get the sort of like a contour of your face. So we can actually do it live here, where I can just open up. Hopefully my laptop won't crash. So this is the folder that I download from GitHub. So that I can do this face animation viewer PDE. This is the processing file, and it should show up. So what I need to do is to download the code, but also the data that has the face. Otherwise, processing is now showing up here. So this is processing. We will get into it, but this is the processing interface. I likely need to change a setting. Cool. So, I just don't change anything, and then I would just hit this run. Hopefully something will show up. It's showing up here. Still here. Well, this is very tricky. Let's do it now. So you can see this is, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? Wait a second. Okay, cool. Cool. So you can see the all these things are being rendered live now in this processing sketch. And you can also, we will go over all these later. But one thing you can do is that you can actually just rotate it. So you see rotate Y. So it's sort of like rotate through the Y axis frame count. So which frame you are in, and then over some numbers, then you will see the face just rotating slowly. But more interesting in processing is that you can actually send your mouse X. So, where the mouse is, the X, the X position of that, and to control the rotation. So if you do this, then now you can actually use your mouse, the X axis, the X value to control where it rotate. So you can imagine that you can create some game or, some interesting interactive media by using the mouse to control stuff that you generate. There's a bunch of other things. I think this also work. Just a better rotation, I believe. So now you can use X and Y both. So Y would change the vertical and X change the horizontal part. So you can look at the code. It's not too crazy. it's basically just rendering the 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 XYZ that you get from a CSV file. So you read the CSV file, some file that has a bunch, like Excel files that has a bunch of, XYZ for all the points of the head. So, each of these are one single point, and you just want to render that live. And for every single frame, you want to render that. So this is like a, very early version of processing, that what you can do with processing. Let me turn that back. Cool. So yeah, as you just saw, processing is like this. Get rid of it. So processing is like, if you install it, you will see this thing. So you can pretty much just do it in this things, and that's it. So you hit the play button, the run button, and you will get the display window. So whatever you write here, that if you compile, you will get the real-time results at the display window whenever you click the run button. I don't think these are the same thing. Maybe, yeah. But anyway, that's what it is, and we will see it later. You could also build like music visualizer, which will be our midterm assignment. You can build a very simple. Anyway, you get the sense. So, we will actually talk about put on, simpler version of it, but in the assignment or a different way. So basically you need to sort of like get what the sound intensity, and amplitude, and then you want to do some, FFT to get a sense of its spectrum. But all sort of that kind of thing, you can do a pretty simple music visualizer. But more interestingly, you can also do something more cooler, that you can do this like Bach generated threads, which is also built-in processor. Here, you get it. Anyway, you get a sense. So this requires some particle system that we won't get into it, but you can get a sense what processing can do if you dig into it more. And this is one of the very cool art that's also generated by processing. So this like website, openprocessing.org, you can actually get a bunch of digital generative arts, find it on this website. So this is one of the artists that I very like very much. So one thing about processing is that you can actually visualize the process of creating the art. So it's very interesting. And you see that whenever I click rerun, it will be random. Um, so this is actually using a slightly different version of processing. So as I said, processing is in Java, but this is processing in JavaScript. So if you are doing JavaScript, then you can deploy it on the web. So you can see it on the web, like on the web browser. And we are using the processing for Java. So that we are creating, your standalone app on your laptop. So they have a very similar syntax, almost the same. But this is a very nice website that you can explore. So it will, whenever you hit refresh, you will get something new. Always the same. But usually I think every day they would change it. You will see a lot of different things on this website that you can create by so cool with processing. Right. Cool. So these are actually running processing on the web. We're actually running something called P5.js. So that's processing for the web. And in the class, we will be talking about processing for the laptop, the desktop. Cool. And you can also create this is a more fancy version of a music visualizer, but this is not create in processing, but Torch Designer is another programming language that people have been using. It's more like Max, but you can also create art for that. So just to give you some inspiration why how people are using. Of course, our class won't be this intense, but you can also. These are all ideas of what a music visualizer could be, in a project, but this is much fancier and it's created in Torch Designer, which is much easier to create real-time art. But in processing, it's also still very powerful. So you can also mimic some just using the things that we're discussing. Cool. So just to give you some examples, what creative coding is about. And people are using it, in arts, but also later in class we will talk about Max, which is doing all these in music and audio synthesis. So to create audiovisual work. Heavily for visual, not for audio and music. But these are processing. That's where we will get started, and then later on we will move into Max. Cool. So some logistics. As I said, everything will be on this magical link. So the course website, everything will be there. Syllabus, schedule, readings. We don't have official readings, recordings. So everything, and including the slides, will be there. You can already see it, I guess. I should click it. Yeah, you can find the slide here. And everything should be there. I will put the video recording there, and you can find all the homework assignments here. I will add links later on. Cool. And communication through emails should be the easiest. And you can also use, we will have a Google chat for our class, in case, for meet an assignment or project, you can communicate, and for QAs. No prerequisites. We'll learn to code from scratch, both processing and Max, which is very different. So if you are familiar with C++ or, Java, Python like text-based language, Max will be a real mind-blowing experience, because it's a totally different way of thinking about programming for real-time art. But if you're familiar with Max, then processing is the more traditional, line-by-line text-based programming language. But we will learn both from scratch. We won't go very deep into it, but this is to get you started with both the two paradigms of coding in the field. A bunch of assignments, tentative, but likely won't change much. We will work on a bunch of different things and hopefully fun enough. Bouncing balls, paddle ball game, spectrum visualizer, and then you will build your own music visualizer. And then for Max, we will look into, simple things like MIDI keyboard, polyphony FM, synthesizer, and then lastly, drum machine. So shouldn't be very tricky if you follow the course. Yeah, for assignments, everything need to be completely on your own, and turn in your work, even if it's incomplete. People tend to be very shy on sending incomplete assignment, but just turn it in. I'm usually give you 50 to 60% of credit, even it's completely not done yet. So definitely just turn in so that I can give you partial credit. Late submission up to a week, 1 point deducted per day. We will have a project at the end. It could be individual or group project, up to you. There are some milestones that we need to meet, but tentative, but likely just be aware of there will be a project pitch. You will talk about what you want to do, and then you will work on it for a month or so. And, the final report. And we could do a in-person presentation or video presentation, depends on the number of groups that we have. I don't think we can easily do 10 presentation in a day. So we can figure out details on that later, but be prepared to do a presentation, either recorded or in person. And there will be a final report due a week after I think that's the last day of the final exam. But anyway, a week after the last week of class. No late submission for the project. Every deliverable, I think it's just project and the presentation. Cool. So grading will be handled on Grayscope. Not sure everybody use Grayscope. Nope. Shouldn't be a problem. Should be very straightforward. I will set it up, and then you should be automatically enrolled, because it should be connected to Wolverine or Grayscope, whatever. Homework 40%, midterm assignment 20%, and project 40%. And here are some of the resources. You can find it on the website, course website, but you will likely refer to them again and again and again and again. So, at some point you would just be familiar with them. So there will be official documentation that, you will need it whenever you are coding in processing. And for Max, there's also official documentation. And again, Max is licensed software with 30-day trial. You can purchase it here, but you can also do a 30-day trial. So both of them are available for Music Tech Lab. So this is Music Tech Lab, MTL. For processing, it's free, so you can always use your desktop, laptop. For Max, it's much trickier. And if you want to get access to this, I will forward the emails to you to get the training done, so that you can use your card and get in whenever you want to work on your project or assignment. For Max, there are some optional reading, but it's not required. But it could be helpful, especially, for processing. And Max, they are kind of very hard to um Max is especially very hard to get started with. And the book doesn't really help because it's a very dynamic programming experience. But some of the YouTube videos are also very helpful in my experience. Attendance, strongly encourage in-person attendance, especially when we get into Max. It's very hard to just learn it through Zoom. But there will also be Zoom links. So whenever you have some other conflicts, and just pop up on Zoom. Lectures will be recorded and made available on the course website. And I think the key is that you have to attend in person, especially for midterm assignment showcase and project pitch. Um, the date is on the website. I will send tentative, but likely won't change. Yeah, GenAI usage. You're free to use it, but you must disclose your usage of GenAI in your write-ups, and you take full responsibility of it as if you have produced them yourself. And as you know, I'm working on AI for music, so definitely you are actually encouraged to use AI. And you might get some interesting results from that. But I guess the most important thing is still ideas should be attributed. You need to cite, you need to provide references for everything you said, even if it's AI generated, and facts should be true. So you have to double check. Other than that, feel free to use it. All plagiarism and cheating, misconduct will be reported, no exception. Cool. Questions on logistics? Yeah, so no canvas. Sounds good. Cool. Then I guess we can just get started with processing. Um, you have your laptops, or you can log in, but I guess we can just try to download it. You can get it at processing.org/download. You likely need it for your assignment, so you will need to download it anyway.
Also saying a different ID, or is it recommended to just do it in the one that it provides?
I think you can do it somewhere else, but if you want to run it, I think you still need to use this ID. Yeah. So it's yeah, I think the compiler. I don't know whether they have compiler available. Yeah. But usually, when you are writing processing code, it's not that big. Usually it's just one standalone file. So if you click the link processing.org/download, this should just change for your system if you're using Apple, Macs. I don't know if it works on Linux, likely not. Oh, it actually does. So just click it and it will download it. Cool. Once you open it, where's my cursor? Oops. Once you install it and open it, it should look like this. Okay. Anyway, it's just do it. That's it. Um, yeah, so you will see that it's just processing. So you will be coding inside this, and there's this console thing that will be helpful in logging stuff. So sometimes you have this display here, but sometimes you are showing this as an art or an installation that's everybody will see. So this is sort of like a public space that you are creating your art. So this console, the black part here, is where you can sort of like log something. We call it log. So basically just showing, displaying some internal information for you to get a sense. Say, I don't know what's the current current BPM. Who doesn't know that? Something like some of the internal information that you can show here. And otherwise, I mean, most of the time you will just be typing something here. At least for this first several as homework, you would just be typing year and then hit the play button. Cool. So to get started with, I would just go through some of the very basic concept of processing, and then we will start writing something in processing. So in processing, you see this display window. So you can think about processing as a language where you are drawing or you are program the machine to draw on this canvas. So this display is what we call a canvas. So it has a width, it has a height that you have to specify. But you can think of it like, you are creating the canvas of your art. So you could create it as a square. You can create it, 1920 times, 1080 for the whole screen, 16 to 9 ratio or whatever ratio. And the more confusing things is that the coordinate system is following the way how all the display are using. So the region is at the top left. You can switch it, but usually when we are talking about rendering, like GPU or whatever computer rendering, we always put the region at the top left. So top left is 0, 0. You have the width, you have the height. So basically now you're just trying to draw stuff onto this canvas. So think about it that if your width is 600, the height is 400, then this point is 600, 400. That's it. So now, this could be our first processing sketch. Cool. That's here, size 400, 400. And then we need a semicolon here, and then circle 200, 200. It's a typo. Oops, I hit caps lock. Circle size. Whenever you type it correctly, you will get oops. Ooh, where's my cursor? Yep. Oh, one more. The radius. So now you hit the run button, it will show up here. So that's our first processing sketch. Should be really straightforward. So you create a 400 by 400 canvas, which is the gray thing here, the canvas. And then now you are specifying, drawing a circle. So, you can probably tell what's going on here. 200, 200, 100. So you set where the X position is, Y position, and the radius, the diameter. So 200 and then 200. So X 200, the first 200, Y 200, the second 200, and 100 is the diameter of your circle. So you will put it over there. So, that's our first processing sketch. So see, cool. We'll get into details, but this is the most basic, processing sketch that you can do. So we code a program of processing a processing sketch. So whenever you see sketch, when you are searching for processing documentation or asking questions on Reddit, you will see sketch, but sketch basically just means a program or a file. in processing. So you set the size of the canvas, and then you have the circle where you have X and Y, 200, 200. Again, we start from the origin at the top left corner, and then you do 200, 200, and you find the center of the circle. And then this is a bit confusing because usually you are expecting radius, but anyway, this is using diameter. The reason behind that is to be consistent with how you draw a square, a rectangle. So they use diameter for consistency. Cool. So likely you haven't seen any program before. So this is what we call the function that we are calling the size function. And so in processing, whenever you type something, it is original, black text. But whenever you write a function that's recognizable, it will show up as blue, usually here. So the size thing. So when you are typing, SI is still, black. And then now when you say something that it recognized, it will become blue. So which is very handy, especially if you forgot some of the things. And whenever you type something it doesn't know, the console will also show up this. So this is very helpful. That's why I also suggest using their IDE because it has all the not autocomplete. I think that's the things that it doesn't support. But at least it has all the function name checking and variable checking built in. So for the function, we will have like two arguments here. Sometimes we call it arguments, sometimes we call it parameters. They have different meanings, but for the sake of simplicity, they pretty much most of the time can be used interchangeably. And you need to parenthesis so that the function knows that these are the parameters sent to the function. And then lastly, semicolon. But in processing, usually you won't forget that because it won't do anything if you don't do that. But this is the very basic function. And over the time you will see that processing already have a bunch of built-in functions that you can call. But oops, what's going on? But over the time you just need to learn other functions so that you can build your programs. Cool. So we would just go through some of the very basic thing, and then you can actually just start doing something in processing to get a sense what it's like. So background color. Once you do size 400, 400, you create this canvas, and then you can use background 0 to turn it into a black background. You can also do 255 to get a completely white background. So this is the standard of how we represent color. So 0 to 255. So the reason for 255 is that we are using 8 bits of information to represent a color. So that means that we use 8. So we basically go from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So this corresponds to 0. And then you have all the way towards 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And if this is in base 2 digit, then this corresponds to 255. So that's the reason why it's from 0 to 255. Because we are using 8, 0, 1, so 8 bits to represent these colors. Anyway, so just think of it like this. So 0 is black, and 255 is white, and you can do gray scale in between them. Yeah. Oh, I ruined it. But more interesting, you can also do RGB. Again, RGB is still the same, 0 to 255 in the range that correspond to 0 to 1 or percentage. So RGB is the way how you represent colors on digital display. It's different from the coloring when you are doing drawing. But for RGB is that when you mix RGB together, you get a white Anyway, you can play with it. And so this is the, I believe this is the Michigan brew. Anyway, 039,676. And you can also use this, what we call a hex code. But usually, hex code is just like whenever you are going on Pantone to get a specific color, it will just give you the hex code. But hex code is basically a different way of representing color in the same case. So there are two characters or numbers for R for the red channel, two for the green channel, two for the blue channel. So it's basically doing the same things. And you need a hash tag at the beginning. A little bit more on the hex code. This is probably too detailed because no one will actually dig into hex code. Usually you just copy paste whenever you just search for that. But what's going on here is that, FF correspond to the, I always forgot it, like base 16 encoding. So you have like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9. And then you go from A, B, C, D, E, F. So A will be 10, B will be 11, C will be 12, D will be 13, E will be 14, F will be 15. So, this is the base 16 encoding. So FF, meaning that this is 15 and 15. So the real number that FF represent is actually 15 times 16 plus 15. Anyway, that's the maximum value you can get, 255. So, if you're looking at CB, which means that it's 12 and 11, so it will be 12 times 16, because we are base 16 plus 11. And what's that? 203. Anyway, so what I want to say is that these numbers letters just represent some numbers. And so for 05 is much easier because it's just 05. It's just a very low blue value. So that's why if you want to get a yellow color, you need a lot of like red and green. You don't necessarily need any blue. So in this case, a lot of red, a lot of green, but not much blue. Anyway, so these are the colors. So most fundamental things that in processing, you have like grayscale 0 to 255. RGB colors, you just break them into 3. And you can also use hex code. You can also use another way of doing it is like HSB color, which represent hue, saturation, brightness. If you've ever used Photoshop, you probably know what that means. But to enable that, let's see, field, let's do 230. So this should be a, let's do background actually. What's going on? Oh, I think that's the default color. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the default color somehow. So background 100, so you get something like that, but you can also do, I don't know, 150, 10. This should be something yellowish, brownish. So you can do all sort of those. But you can also do something like color mode, HSB. So now you will turn the color mode into HSB. So these numbers no longer representing RGB. Now it's HSB. So hue is the sort of like rainbow of it. Saturation, let's just do full saturation. Brightness, let's do half. So somehow we still get this color. Let's do 50. Yeah, so you can see that, well, let's do full brightness. So for 0, you will get red. And for 50, you get yellowish. And then the larger it goes, you just go through the whole rainbow spectrum. So, you can also switch to another color mode, HSV. So hue is from red all the way to yellow, green, blue, magenta, and then going back to red. And saturation is saturation, brightness is brightness. But anyway, that's another way to represent colors. So now we have the first processing sketch. Now you can also create in a rectangle. So should be pretty straightforward. Size 400, 400 rectangle, X, Y with height. So you can get the rectangle. So you can just try it here. Where is my first square? 200, 200, 150. If we do 100, 100, then it will be a square. That's a square. Anyway, if we are doing a square, then it will be just a square. But if you want to do rectangle, then you can set the width, the height to a different size. And so one thing you will notice is that the rectangle is a bit confusing because it starts with the origin at the top left. Anyway, you can create a rectangle, but it's slightly off the central point. So this is what we call an anchor point. So think about it, you are doing a stamp to the canvas. And for this stamp, it will always start in from the top left. So sometimes, if you are writing a Word document, sometimes you put the image somewhere and you want to surround it with text, you always get that anchor points thing. So think about it that way. You need to specify where you define this rectangle to be. So if you want to make it behave similar to the circle thing, you can set rect mode to center. So that now the center will be in the anchor point will be in the center. So rect mode center. So now it will be in the center. So this rect mode center just turn the anchor point of rectangle, all the rectangles, to its center rather than its top left corner. Should be very straightforward. I guess one thing you probably also notice is that this is capitalized. So the idea is that you can always write something because when you are writing code, machine couldn't read space. So oftentimes we don't want space. But if you think about if you are writing a fancy, I don't know, fancy function, fancy rect mode, this will be very hard to read. So this is what we call K-mode case. So we could just whenever there's like two words, we will capitalize the second word. So that's why rect mode, the M will be capitalized. I hope there's likely no questions. Questions? Good. Yeah, I would just keep showing some of the most easier things. So if you want to change the color of the rectangle, you just do fill before you draw it. So that's something might be different from what you thought. So fill 0. So 0 is black, 255 is white. So if you do this, you should get the black rectangle in the middle. So you always need to do the fill before. So think about it is that, well, we set the the color of our I don't know pen, and then you just draw the rectangle later. So you have to set up the fill color, and then even the stroke, the border, whatever colors for that. Cool. So I guess this is just a first sketch. So there's a bunch of things, circle, ellipse. So this is just like square versus rectangle. So for square and circle, you only need to get the diameter and width. And ellipse and rectangle, then you need to get the width and height. But there are also something else, point, line, triangle, quad. And it's very straightforward, X, Y, or X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, and then more X, Y. So these are some of the built-in shapes in processing. You can get a sense of it. I think more useful is this. Likely for now, you won't bother using these. You can always click this. But if you over the time, especially when you're working on assignment, you will likely want to use Control R or Command R to run it so that your hand doesn't need to be off for the mouse. And then once you hit escape, then it will close it. Yeah, and there's also some very easy to use, especially when you're using the processing IDE. You can hit Control Shift F, Command Shift F. You can just highlight something that you want to search, like rec mode, and then Control Shift F. It will open up the official reference on the processing. It's showing up here. So you can see rec mode, and then you can see there are 3 different options. So you have rec mode corners, rec mode center. So that's what we saw. This is the default mode where you are using the top left corner, and then you can use the center mode so that you use the center of the square and rectangle as the anchor point. I don't know what the radius is, but you can just do Control Shift F whenever you see something you don't know. You can also do this Control Shift F. You see the rectangle. Well, rectangle page is likely very boring. Yeah, and you will see that you can actually do something more than that. I didn't know this. You can actually turn it into a rounded rectangle. Let's try it. Let's do time cube. So you can turn it into that. I didn't know that. Okay, so I learned something. So there's a bunch more. You can even set the 4 corner separately. So if you only want to do 20, 0, 20, 0, let's see what is this. Yeah, now you can get the top left and the bottom right corner as curved. Cool. So yeah, that's the benefit of doing Control Shift F. Sometimes you get something interesting. And comment on comment, we will see later. You can also auto format with Command T. Cool. So if you want, you can now already recreate block M in processing, just using some of the function that we just talked about. I don't really think we have. Yeah. Anyway, I guess just play with processing a little bit. These are some of the shapes that you can look at. I think the most tricky thing that you have to be familiar with is the coordinate system where it stops, especially for the y-axis, it's flipped. You start from the top to the bottom. I guess let's just keep it shorter today. So this is what my version is like. You can basically just recreate the whole block M. We start from getting this whole circle. And we have to, forget about everything else here, voice setup. We will talk about this next class. This is the typical way how you create a processing sketch rather than just start typing and then kick run. So usually you will set up a canvas and then we'll write a function that's called draw. And this draw will be called iteratively, not recursively, iteratively again and again, so that it will be updating the canvas. That's why you can create those, dynamic art, generative art. But in our case, we are actually generating something static. But anyway, we will write this draw function. So we have like background to 55. So, you see that the background is white, no stroke, so that you won't get the border of the rectangle, so that you won't see these red things. And so, you draw a circle, that's the big one, and then, you can just draw a bunch of rectangle. But here we are using quad, so you have to strategically figure out where the points are. So 140, 100, 140, 190. 140, 100 is here, 140, 190, go 90 down. And then 200 to 65 is this, go right and go down. And 200, 175, go up, and then back to the original one. So that's the quad. So you get to quad. So, you can basically create something, basic geometry shape, just using some of these, very basic shapes. So is that considered programming? Might. Yeah, so that's our, think about it like our playground. And later on we will use this to dig into if else, for loop, while loop, all the things that we know about programming. But now at least you have a visual aid, so that you get to learn how to do programming. So for those who have some programming experience, likely these will be too simple for you for this for several classes, that lectures. So I don't know, feel free to skip, but take a look on the homework, then you will get a sense what we will be talking about. There's something you need to learn about processing, because it's still rendering something rather than just writing the code. But the concept we will be teaching will be very basic. Just recursion, iteration, for loop, while loop, if else, and scoping, variable, function, and class. We will get deeper into that using processing as our playground. Cool. So this is just a start. Nothing fancy. We don't have any of the typical programming thing that we are expecting, but you can expect what we will be doing next. So just a recap, we talk about processing. You can download it. This is called a processing sketch. It's nice with an IDE. As you can see, it do like it automatically detect whether the function name is correct, which is very handy. You can also do Control-Shift-F to search for documentation, which is also very handy. And it has a display window and console. So I think the IDE is very good, especially for quick prototyping. And under the hood, it's a Java program. So if you want to extend it, it's also possible to make it real fancy, but that's not a must. And this is our first processing sketch, and compared to the one that I'm showing here, it's a little bit different, but we will get into that next class. Cool. We talk about how to get a circle. We talk about rectangle, especially rack mode, which is kind of confusing if you haven't played with that. And then you can fill before you call the rectangle function. And there's a bunch of more shapes, but you can play with it. And with all those, we can already create something from that. Cool. So next lecture, we'll be doing this. So that's the funny part of processing, that you can, as I said, we are doing static for that block M, but now this is, dynamically rendering that draw function again and again. So whenever your mouse move, you are rendering this, I call it creepy face, again and again based on where your mouse is. So that's what processing is fun. And in one of our homework, we will be using mouse to control like a paddleboard game. So you can create some very funny, tiny game and interesting interactive arts in processing. Cool. See you on Wednesday.